All right, my friends, welcome to another edition of Extreme Health Radio. Let me know if you are hearing some weird, bizarre, crazy sounds, because I'm hearing some weird things in my earbuds. So let me know if you guys can hear me okay. Hope you guys are doing great out there in the world, wherever you're listening. Happy Wednesday, March 13th, 2019. Where's the year going? It's going so fast already. It's absolutely crazy how fast it's going. Hope you're doing great. This is episode 663. So if you're new to our work and new to what we're doing, we do shows 3 days a week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube. So we've got a lot of cool shows coming up. Let me give you a little rundown of some of the upcoming shows. Today we have Siim Land. We'll be talking with him about intermittent fasting, autophagy, longevity, biohacking, all kinds of cool stuff today. And then on Friday we got Dr. Randy Tent. Now he was a guy that a lot of people have asked us to have on the show, and so that's going to be really, really cool. We're going to talk about alternative health. He's really popular, I think, on YouTube, and so this is going to be a good show on Friday, March 15th. Then next Monday, we have Nathan Walls. We'll be talking with him about optimizing health and wellness. What I like about Nathan is that he really covers the full gamut. He understands the light water magnetism side of health, and he also understands the personal development, the spirituality, as well as the food and all kinds of stuff. And we've done a couple shows with him. He's become a good friend of ours. We did a couple shows with him on light, and so he's really a cool guest. That's coming up next Monday. And then a week from today, we got Katie Singer. We'll be talking with her about how do we shrink the internet's footprint. So it's going to be more of an environmental show. That's going to be a lot of fun. Next Friday, we have Dr. Sam Byrne, and we'll talk with him about holistic eye care. So if you know of anybody, and this is a real problem with people, macular degeneration, glaucoma, myopia, all these types of things are a real problem with blue lit screens these days. So we're going to talk with him. So if you know of anybody with issues with their eyes, which I think is going to be becoming more and more prevalent, make sure to share that show and join us live on that date. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of these shows. There's a little bell icon somewhere near the show. If you're watching on YouTube, there's there's a bell somewhere, I know. So click on that and you'll be notified when we go live. I see a bunch of people are already in the chat room. Ula says the sound is good, no weird noises. Okay, good. Beck from Ohio, great to have you here. Holistic Health with Harry is here. A lot of cool people, so thanks for joining us, guys. In our never-ending quest to get to the bottom of health, longevity, wellness, and all that good stuff, we interview people around the world, authors, researchers, scientists. So today we have Siim Land, and he is just an awesome guy. This is episode 663. So if you're listening on iTunes or as a podcast and want to get the show notes to anything we talk about, it is extremehealthradio.com/663. Today, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about intermittent fasting, autophagy, and he's the author of some books and programs called Metabolic Autophagy, the Keto Fit Program, and Intermittent Fasting and Feasting. He's an author, content creator, holistic health practitioner, and high performance coach. It says on his bio that he's an anthropologist by education, but he's also an entrepreneur and writer. And so let me bring him up on the show. This is going to be a cool show to have him on and talk. Here we go. Let's bring him on. Turn his audio on. Siim, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Justin. And it's really good to talk with you, across the entire world.
Yeah. So whereabouts are you located right now in the UK?
No, I'm actually in Estonia, so it's my kind of home country, and most of the time I'm spending time in this small little island in the Baltic Sea called Saaremaa, and it's like a really kind of natural place to live, and really enjoying it here. But yeah, every once in a while I also kind of travel around, and a few weeks ago I just came back from Los Angeles as well, so that was another cool trip to get some more sunshine into my Nordic skin, so to say.
Yeah, I think we missed each other. You were up in LA doing some conferences, right? And I was hoping to get you in studio, but we didn't have our studio set up. But you're at some health conferences, right, up in LA?
Yeah, there was the Metabolic Health Summit, so it was like a really cool event. A lot of science about the keto diet and general like low carb eating and intermittent fasting as well. So it's really fun.
That's cool. And do you travel quite a bit?
Well, I do. Whenever I do kind of go on these travels, then I'm trying to get to some sort of an event, so to say, that kind of make it worthwhile and to kind of learn and optimize myself at the same time.
Yeah, that's cool. I like what you said on your website. You're always learning, right? Always trying to push the envelope and trying to
Mm.
learn more every day, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's like a never-ending process that you're never going to actually get to the finish line, so to say, when it comes to your health or personal development. Once you kind of once you start to learn about these things, then you realize that there's so much to learn, and it's basically never gonna end.
Yeah, I know. It's a constant thing. And, one of the main themes of our show and what we like to focus on is personal development. Even though it's Extreme Health Radio, I mean, it's really difficult to constantly be working on yourself when you're just in extreme pain or you can't lie down, you can't sit up. We've all been there. And I'm curious for you, like, how did you get involved in the personal development side and tying this all in with health?
Well, first of all, like I've never been sick or I've never been obese, and kind of most of the reasons why I did get involved into like health optimization and biohacking and those sort of things had to do with wanting to, improve my performance, physical performance, mental performance, and yeah, to simply become more successful in life, so to say. And I kind of
Uh-huh.
realized that yeah, health is the most important part to that because even like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is structured in a way that foundation is laid by your physical needs, like you need air, you need calories, you need water, you need shelter, those things. So I kind of I adjusted it in a sense that you have to kind of take care of your body first before you can start to actualize yourself and reach your like truest potential. In my own example, everything that I kind of started doing this had to do with like wanting to optimize myself and become like a higher performer.
Yeah. So why did you want to were you doing athletics or sports or something that you wanted to optimize, or is this just something that you wanted to do just because?
Well, I think part of it had to do with like my own personal philosophy as well, that to kind of live a more fulfilling life, I would want to, try to maximize my potential in every aspect, starting with like your fitness and ending with your general kind of knowledge about the world and so on. So, yeah, it was usually had to do with the mostly wanting to get better and improve myself. But also, like during the after my high school years, I went to the military, which is also like mandatory here in Estonia. So during that time, I was also kind of exposed to these different physical challenges, mental challenges, environmental stressors. Walking in swamps, sleeping in the snow, and so on. So that kind of it gave me the bug of wanting to become like a more tougher person and to get stronger and healthier and so on. So that's one of those another epiphanies that I had that in order to yeah become or in order to live a more fulfilling life as well, then starting with your body and becoming more fitter, it's like really one of the more essential most like a cornerstones to the entire thing.
Yeah, it's so important for people to make sure to keep on top of their health and to to keep that energy level high, right? Because it's that energy that you have from taking care of your physical sort of corporeal body that allows you to have the energy to have desires
Mm.
to personal grow and have spiritual growth, and all that stuff comes from the physical energy in your physical body, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like it's it's very difficult to try to work on something meaningful or try to do something with your life if you're feeling like you're suffering or if you're in pain all the time. And yeah, like it even like a toothache, it can definitely ruin your entire week, and you're not gonna sleep, you're not gonna feel well. So yeah, it's your health is really one of those most important things.
Yeah, yeah, I know. So, whoops, let me bring myself back up on the screen here. For you, I'm curious what some of your personal development sort of gurus are. For me, I really love the work of Jim Rohn, and I like the work of Bob Proctor. There's a lot of really cool people out there, and what's cool too is seeing even guys that are popular now, like Tony Robbins. He's really into health, and I
Mm,
saw him doing
yeah.
on Netflix his video I'm Not Your Guru. He was doing rebounding and cold therapy. And so it's cool to know that a lot of these guys now are getting into the physical side of health as well, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Like Tony Robbins is the really like a hardcore biohacker almost, and
Right,
he
right.
does like a lot of different things, but he's also like performing at high levels all the time. So yeah, it's kind of natural. And when I first started, in during high school or something, reading different books, then yeah, Tony Robbins' book, or several of his books were definitely on one of those in the list. But other people I also kind of look up to have always been even like the ancient Stoic philosophers of ancient Rome, like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and one of the most kind of my number one favorite book of all time is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. So he was like the survivor of the concentration camps, and he was kind of a psychologist at the same time, and he realized that people who have like a bigger meaning behind their suffering or behind their turmoil, those people are much more able to endure those suffering or endure that discomfort and everything, because they kind of rationalize it away in a much more meaningful way. And yeah, it was kind of funny that just with your own perception, by changing your kind of view on things and changing your paradigm, that's going to completely change the physical stimuli or the physical response that you experience as well. So I think that's one of the most important books like every person can or should read in their life, like Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah, that's a great book. I remember you reading it a while back, and he's the guy that set up, I think, originally started what they now call logotherapy. And what
Mm.
was interesting, I thought, about that book is like you mentioned, he was going through the concentration camps, but what I thought was fascinating was like the meaning. It's not like what can life do for me. It's more like you exist, so life needs you for a particular reason. So it almost kind of flips the whole thing around. A lot of people that are maybe depressed or suicidal think, oh, I'm not getting meaning out of life, and what's life's meaning, and what does it mean to me? But he flips the whole thing around in his book and talks about like you exist, so what does life require of you, and why
Mm.
are you here, and kind of flips the whole thing around. That book is really good, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, it's really really amazing, and yeah, it's like really very easy to fall into this nihilistic trap and see that nothing matters, or I can do whatever I want. But the truth is that we are, if you kind of zoom, if you kind of grasp like a bigger perspective on your own individual life, and also kind of see what has happened in the past, and like if you see yourself as part of this entire kind of collection of humanity and like life on earth, then you will have some sort of like a bigger reason to do your thing, and to actually, yeah, what I do on a daily basis, that's actually, it has a significant impact, and it does matter. So I think it's a much more optimistic way of looking at it, and a
Mm-hmm.
much more like preferential, even if it's like an illusion or whatever. It's still a much more, even subjectively being in this particular moment, it's gonna feel better, and it's gonna be like much more optimal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So, in your own life, applying that sort of principle to your own life, like you've got a great YouTube video on your sort of YouTube homepage, I guess it's called, talking about what you're doing and who you're helping and things.
Mm.
And so, what are you seeing with your friends and family, people potentially that are sick, or friends or family that you're trying to help? Like, what are you seeing with people, and how are you trying to open their minds up with the way you're living?
Well, I think the kind of way that I like to teach people around me, like my closest friends and family, is to practice what I preach, and like lead by example. So I'm never going to push my own dietary habits or my ways of seeing on other people. I much rather do it in a way that they want to adopt those things themselves, because like if you if you want to like force someone to do something, then you're guaranteed that they don't want to do it, and
Yeah.
they're not probably not going to do it in the first place. So a
Right.
much more effective way of going about it is to actually make them curious first, and make them ask questions of why are you doing it, what's the effects, what are the benefits, and so on. And then I will explain to them, okay, for instance, why am I not eating a bunch of carbs, like usually the kind of dietary recommendations are that you need to eat like a bunch of bread, potatoes, pastas, those things, because they're healthy. But why aren't you eating? So it's kind of shatters their own paradigms completely if I explain to them, okay, it's not actually a good idea to spike your insulin all the time, and it's not a good idea to expose yourself to the anti-nutrients of those grains on a consistent basis. So it kind of enables them to, start to make their own conclusions, and then they will, like, they're able to kind of maybe, okay, I'll try it out and see what it feels like, because I see that you're, full of energy all the time. You're not tired. You're able to work the entire day without being able to, fall asleep or whatever. It's something that they see and they become curious of it. So yeah, I think like leading by example is the best way of kind of teaching them.
Yeah, man, I agree completely, because when they see what benefits you're getting, instead of shoving it down their throat with words, and they're looking at the actions that you're doing, it's so much more impactful, I think, to help people realize, because that way they get to sort of take it in on their own terms. They just get to kind of sit back and observe you and see how you're living, and there's no threat to them. And then once their energy starts waning, or once something starts happening, then you're always the guy, right, that they come to and saying, hey, what do I do for this or that, right?
Yeah. It's so true that, the ancient Chinese, folklore also talks about, teach a man to fish and you will feed him for a lifetime, so on. So it's much more important to help to make the person change on a like a personal level, rather than just giving them the exact blueprint of what to do. Because yeah, like you said, eventually they're going to run into some of the problems, and then they don't know what to do. So even in nutrition, like if you don't know how certain macronutrients and how certain ingredients affect your body on a metabolic level, on a cellular level, then eventually you will be still like confused about it, and you won't be able to make your own adjustments in real time, so to say. I think it's one of the best ways of ensuring that you have a quality health for the rest of your life is to learn about, okay, what kind of a lever am I pulling with my nutrition at what particular moment,
Mm-hmm.
and how it's going to affect my body in the long term, and how these different foods, how these different exercises, light, those things, cold, all those things, they have like some effect on the body.
Mm-hmm.
And you as a human being would want to know, how can I use them, and in what situation do I want to like leverage them.
Yeah, definitely. So we're supposed to talk about autophagy and metabolic diseases, and metabolism and ketosis and all that stuff. So I guess we should go there. And I'm curious. Okay, so like for your current diet, do you like what's your current diet like? Let's start with that so that we can get a gauge on what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I don't kind of practice a specific way of eating for like a long period of time. I'm kind of like a more cyclical approach, and you could say it's more like a cyclical ketogenic diet that incorporates daily time restricted eating and intermittent fasting. So usually, as a default baseline, I am eating like a very low carb diet with primarily like the ketogenic foods, but I'm not afraid of the carbs either, and I do incorporate them every once in a while, based upon like what kind of requirements my body has, and I try to kind of improve or promote the metabolic flexibility side of ketosis. So I am running on, let's say, a ketogenic metabolism most of the time, but I do use some carbs based on the situation, and usually those situations are related to like physical performance and promoting like faster recovery and muscle growth.
Uh-huh. And do you use, so when you say you use carbs, do you, like if you're going to do some exercise, do you have some carbs afterwards or before like runners do? Like how do you specifically use the carbs?
Well, yeah, there are like the two ways of going about to either have them post workout for recovery, or use them during the workouts, which is targeted ketogenic diet. And I have used both of them, and I use them both interchangeably as well. And let's say, for instance, if I want to have like some form of a shorter, more intense type of workout, and then I may go for the targeted ketogenic approach, because I will use those carbohydrates during the physical exercise, and I will dip back into ketosis afterwards. I would use like the second version, where I would consume the carbs post workout only if I'm like planning to have like another intense workout the day afterwards, so to say. So I would replenish my glycogen faster, and those glycogen will be used tomorrow, if that makes sense. So yeah, both of them can be used. It's simply a matter of like also preference. Sometimes I don't feel like having like a lot of potatoes after a workout or something, and then I will maybe simply use like something that is easily digestible during the workout, like some bananas or something like that.
I see. I see. Now here's a question that I have often thought about when it comes to people that talk about ketosis and using your body and using. Sometimes they'll talk about using exogenous ketones and stuff to force your body into a metabolic ketosis. And what I'm hearing them say sometimes is that like your body can run off of carbohydrates or it can run off fats. And what it sounds to me like they're saying sometimes is that you want to train your body to run off of fats so that you're not training your body to run solely on sugar. And so my question with that is, it sounds to me like they're changing the permanent way their body operates versus it can run on fat sometimes. It sounds like to me like what you're doing is you're keeping that option open, because if you're healthy, you should be able to, if you're doing ketosis, if you're in ketosis, you should be able to switch quickly back and also uptake some of those carbohydrates for energy as well, right? So you should be able to go back and forth, it seems, right?
Yeah, like in natural setting or as humans evolved, then they would experience ketosis only during times when they were fasting or during famine where they didn't have access to real food. And yeah, a healthy metabolism should be able to swap back and forth really fast. So to say that if you are extending your fast for a little bit, then you should go into ketosis faster. The problem is that in the modern world, we kind of wrecked that system to a certain extent, that people are simply overeating the carbohydrates and are doing it in a very frequent manner as well. So most people rarely a fasted state, and they rarely deplete their own body's glycogen stores. So they're always glucose strain and on the sugar burning metabolism. And on a keto diet, you can kind of reclaim that flexibility just because you teach your body to, okay, this is what it feels like to burn fat again, and this is what it feels like to it's going to condition the mitochondria to run on the fatty acids and the ketones as well more efficiently. So by default, you do need to go on a like shorter period of ketogenic dieting, where you build up the mitochondrial density and where you build up the metabolic flexibility. But after that, once you become healthy again, and once you do become keto adapted, then I would say that, yeah, you are able to still maintain that keto adaptation by, practicing this form of carb cycling or something like that in some shape or form.
Mm-hmm.
And you can still maintain your like flexibility with that.
Mm-hmm. And so do you think let's say just for like athletic performance, I know there's a lot of people now talking about this whole giant myth of I need to like eat a bowl of pasta the night before I do a 24-mile or whatever marathon and preload the carbs so that I can have enough glycogen to not get muscle cramps or whatever it is that they're doing, or they're taking gel packs during their long marathon runs. And some people have now, I think, what's that guy's name? He's the guy that does the ultra marathon. He's got a book named The Ultra Marathon Man, Dean Karnazes. And I think he's switching now to doing more of a ketogenic diet. And so what I'm wondering is, you mentioned before that if you're going to do like a long sort of workout, you might adopt some carbohydrates for that, versus if you're going to do a short burst of a workout, you might stay on the ketosis. Have you heard of people doing like a ketogenic diet for long, extended like triathlons and stuff like that? And if you've heard about like what goes on there, are people thriving on that, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ketogenic athletes, especially in the ultra endurance scene. And for instance, recently there was also one American runner, Zach Bitter, who broke the record for 100 miles, and I think he ran it in like 12 hours or something like that. And he broke the record, and he's primarily like a keto athlete. And there are many other examples as well. That there was also like a few months ago, or like last year, a British rowing team rowed across the Atlantic Ocean on a keto metabolism, and they did it also like in record time or something like that. So yeah, there was a lot of examples, especially in the endurance scene. And I would
Hmm.
say that the most of the most or the best sport that could benefit from the keto diet is like the ultra endurance, because yeah, you're literally teaching your body to run on fatty acids and ketones, and the intensity during those events isn't that high. So your body by default will always prefer to run on like a slower burning fuel like fat. And if you're carrying around fat with you all the time, which we all are, then you have like this access to this very almost unlimited source of energy and calories. So you're not going to run into this energy crisis that most of the carb athletes may run into, and you don't need to refeed yourself. And with that comes like many other benefits, like less digestive strain, basically more stable energy, and you don't have to rely on these exogenous fuel sources. And there's also the thing that with keto adaptation, you're also becoming more glycogen sparing, so your body doesn't need to burn that much glycogen, which is one of the benefits of it. And whenever you do come across, let's say, some sort of a hill where you have to kind of increase the intensity for a short period of time, then your body will still have that glycogen around, because up until that point you were running only on like body fat and ketones. So yeah, that's another benefit, that you're not going to burn that much glycogen, and whenever you do tap into the glycogen, then you can still go back into running on fat because you're like keto adapted.
That's interesting. So, like you mentioned, if someone is doing an event like this and they're sort of running on ketones and using fat for their fuel, and then let's say the exogenous ketones or the ketones that are in their blood have diminished to a point where they now need to start tapping into their fat stores. And the good thing is that we all have fat on our body, so we can tap into that during a athletic event. If that starts happening, what happens to the glycogen levels in the body? It seems to me that everyone would have enough fat for fuel for at least whatever athletic event they're doing, right?
Hmm. Yeah, well, there's about 2,000 calories worth of muscle glycogen your body can carry around, and that's also one of the reasons why these athletes may take these glucose gels and the sports drinks to replenish their glycogen during the event. But like I said earlier, that you become more glucose sparing or glycogen sparing on keto, so you postpone that point where you tap into the glycogen, and you're gonna have it kind of in your spare tank as a like backup fuel. And even if you do tap into the glycogen, then it's really hard to deplete it completely. And in most cases, people rarely deplete their full muscle glycogen, and it will be almost impossible. But even if you do like burn through some of the muscle glycogen, then your body can still convert the other fuel substrates into glycogen. For instance, protein is one of them, which is the inefficient way of going about it, and it's not that common to happen actually. But the other fuel source is also like fat, the glycerol backbone of triglycerides that can be converted into glucose and glycogen as well through the process of gluconeogenesis. So even if you do run out of glycogen during an event or after a workout, then your body will still be able to replenish the muscle glycogen with the use of its own body fat. So yeah, it's quite amazing that if you promote the aspect of keto adaptation, then your body will really become very efficient at all the fuels that it uses, and it's not gonna like waste away almost anything.
Yeah, gosh, it's so interesting. We're gonna take a little bit of a break right now, but maybe when we come back from the break, I want to ask you about how the ketogenic diet applies to things like cancer. We've done a lot of shows specifically with people who are using the ketogenic diet for cancer and for other health conditions and diabetes and things. So I'm curious about what your thoughts are about that. And so if you guys are interested, check out Siim's website. Let me bring this up on the screen so you guys can take a look at his website. His website, if you're listening on the podcast, is Siim, SIIMLAND siimland.com, and you can find out everything he's up to. I'm showing it on the YouTube thing right now, and he's got a store there. He's got his own podcast, a bunch of books he's written. He's doing public speaking. Pretty cool guy, and I like what he's doing here. So check out siimland.com, and I want to tell you guys about a couple little things going on right now. The first thing is that these glasses you see me wearing, you might think they're crazy and weird, but they actually block blue light. And one of the things that we're learning now is that the high frequency and high intensity, faster wavelength blue light is damaging our eyes. And not only that, it's damaging our mitochondria, it's damaging our body's ability to create ATP. Some people say it's the number one cause of all disease because it shuts down your hormone production, your thyroid gland. You can see if you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing a little thyroid thing around my neck so that this blue light from this computer doesn't affect my thyroid. So there's a lot of questions that I get about blocking blue light. So there's one whole side of the equation, and that is managing your light environment. Managing and blocking what's coming into you. And then there's also another piece that I'll share with you in just a second, how to get those beneficial frequencies and which beneficial frequencies to bring in. So let me bring up these glasses. These are actually called Blue Blocks, BLOX, and these are the ones that I'm wearing right now. And someone wrote in just recently, would you recommend getting a sauna? Would you recommend getting a rebounder, a blender, some of these more high-ticket items? And I told her that the number one thing you could do is manage your light environment. It's so critical. Nathan Walls has done a couple videos about how light is more important than food. And we have I think only 10% of our brain is wired for the metabolic process of food, whereas 40 or 50, 60% of it is wired for light. And it's just really fascinating. So light primarily affects the mitochondria of your health. And you know what's weird I learned just recently is that we have photoreceptors in our gut. That's so crazy, right? What are we doing with photoreceptors in our digestive tract? It's so crazy. So there's a big thing with light, and managing your light environment is going to help hold on to more melatonin. So ideally, you would create melatonin from the sun early in the morning. And this is really important to help build that melatonin level from the different UV frequencies of the sun that you get upon sunrise. And the problem is that in our modern environment, we expose our eyes to blue light as the first light of the day, which is a real problem, but also during the day as well. So we lose that melatonin. And here's the thing about melatonin that's just crazy. People tell you and sell you that melatonin is like the sleep hormone, which is, it is, but it's also the most strongest anti-cancer hormone that your body ever creates on its own. And so what it does create from the sun, it's really critical to hold on to that melatonin. And when you expose yourself to blue light, you start losing the melatonin. We've done a whole show, series of shows with Dr. Jack Cruz and Andy Mant, as well as Nathan Walls. And if you're looking, Blue Blocks is actually making some really cool glasses that blocks all the frequencies of blue that I wear during the day. And usually I wear yellow during the day and dark orange at night. And we had a hospital birth, which is something we didn't want to do. We were prepared for a home birth. Whoops, that doesn't show up. We were prepared for our home birth, but I never go anywhere without my glasses. And for 3 days, I probably can't see it here, I wore my blue blocking glasses when I was at the hospital. So here's another pair that I have here as well. You might be able to take a look at that if you guys are watching on YouTube. For some reason, our Instagram's not working. But anyway, Blue Blocks is running a commercial. So, I'm sorry, a sale. And so what they're doing, if you enter the code, if you go through our link on our store, if you're watching on YouTube, there's a link in the description below for 20% off. And that ends on Saturday, March 16th. Midnight, 2019 Australian time. So they're in Perth. I'm not sure if that's Perth time or what, but it's 20% off. So make sure to go through our link if you want some of these cool glasses. They have all different models. You can even send in your own frames too, which is really cool. So they're doing a custom service now. If you enter the code WSD, World Sleep Day, I think that stands for 2019, before Saturday, March 16th, at midnight Australian time 2019, you'll get 20% off. So make sure to do that. And then something else too that we've been doing a lot, as I do every single day, is red light therapy. So we talked before about biohacking and all these types of things. And one of the best ways that you can do is block the blue lights that you're exposed to from our devices, right? From all of these 6,500 Kelvin frequency of blue with no mitigating red or purple. It's really damaging to our system. And the best thing to do is go out in the sun. That's number one. That is like a million times better than the Juve. Or any red light device. There's no artificial light that can mimic the sun. There's just not. But some of these tools are really great, I think, to have in your home on cloudy days to prevent from seasonal affectiveness disorder that happens a lot, improving your dopamine levels and getting rid of depression and things like that. Is exposing your body to more of the beneficial frequencies of light. And we have a little clip with Nathan Walls I think you'll enjoy. Check this out. It's kind of going to come about halfway through the commercial, but check this out.
Concise, easy to read articles. And he has this one, like an image of a human, and it goes through, it talks about all the different things that they're using red light for.
Wow.
Such as, muscle recover, neurodegeneration. If you have a sluggish liver, you can put it on your liver, and it'll improve your liver. Because remember, red light penetrates up to 30 centimeters into your body, and red light can turn that ATPase. So those photons from the red light can literally go in your cells, in your mitochondria, and make ATP. They can make energy. So and the way this works is, your red blood cells. What's really interesting is if you blow up a red blood cell, it's kind of shaped like a donut, but it's kind of shaped like a satellite. Or like a dish. Why are dishes shaped like that? So they can capture the signal. So your red blood cells are shaped in a certain way so they can capture photons of light, capture that light, and then they take it to your cells, and your mitochondria can use that to make energy. So that's another thing, using red light also improves your mitochondrial function. So it has all sorts of benefits, but if you really want to dig into it, just kind of Google the terms I told you, and you'll find a whole lot of information on the internet.
There you go, Mr. Nathan Walls. He's going to be on the show again pretty soon, and we'll be talking with him all about light as well. But I really recommend you guys get one of these Juve red light therapy devices. The cool thing is that these things are modular. So if you see here on one of the photos, there's like a UFC fighter, and he's got panels on all four sides of him. There's desktop versions now, so they can put it right on your desk if you're working. It has a little stand on it. They make them in all different sizes, and it's really, I think, something we should all consider bringing into our home. So I like to focus like at the highest point of health, and I think that ultimately above light is spiritual growth, personal development, learning why you're here, and all those things. Those are in my opinion, the deepest aspects of health and personal growth. I think that's where all disease comes from, in that invisible spiritual plane. But one level down from that is the physics and the biophysics, which is like electrons and magnetism and light, and how these things affect these invisible processes in our body. And so I recommend people start at the top and then work your way down, rather than starting at the bottom and working your way up. You'll get the biggest bang for your buck working on your personal growth, on your spiritual walk, on light, water, magnetism, and then you can start working on the food, the fitness, and all that kind of stuff too. So I really recommend these things. The Juve red light therapy devices are just so awesome, and I do mine for 10 minutes a day. They're really great for after your workout to decrease inflammation. Some of the benefits of this are like, it's really great for collagen production and for stretch marks and scars and reducing inflammation. Like Nathan said, it penetrates 10 to 30 centimeters underneath the skin, so it actually penetrates your organs as well. So it's really great for your thyroid, for your liver, and like I mentioned before, what are we doing with photoreceptors in our gut? It's crazy, right? So this is really, really great. A great technology to bring in your home. They offer a 60-day trial. There's a 2-year warranty on these things. And what's cool about it is that this thing will last, I think it said here, 50,000 hours. And it's great for ATP production, allowing the electrons to spin more effectively, and allows the mitochondria also to make more water, which is crazy, right? So little did you know that the mitochondria actually make water. So really, really great piece of equipment to bring in your home and into your life. Check it out, the Joovv Red Light Therapy. It's available if you're watching on YouTube. There's a link in the description below. I encourage you to get one or save for one. And if you're listening on a podcast and want to get access to the link, just go to extremehealthradio.com/663. So let me bring Siim back on. And you know what we might do too is there's quite a people chit-chatting in the chat room. So maybe we'll start with some of the more metabolic diseases. And then we'll jump around a little bit in the chat room and ask some questions. So, Siim, I wanted to ask you, with regards to the ketogenic diet and diseases like cancer and, these types of things that we've been taught that cancer feeds on sugar. Is that correct? Does it matter what kind of sugar we're talking about? And how does the ketogenic diet play a role in all that, do you think?
Well, I do think that there is a lot of research by these different scientists, like Thomas Seyfried and Dom D'Agostino, and they do show that the keto diet can be used as an effective therapy for treating these more serious conditions like cancer and epilepsy and those sorts of things. And I do think that one of the main fuel sources all of these viruses and cancers they feed upon is primarily glucose, but also like one of the amino acids like glutamine. So a keto diet that restricts those things, I think it can be very effective in a sense that it will put the body in the metabolic state of ketosis, which mimics the physiology of fasting a lot. So that's why it was originally invented as well, to kind of enable people to sustain a fasted state where the body is depleted from exogenous glucose and it doesn't have like excess glutamine around. So I would say that, yeah, in most cases it can be used as a way to help the treatment process. So the opposite side of putting a person on a processed carb diet, that's definitely not going to work, and it's gonna feed the disease even further. So a keto diet can be quite useful for that. With that being said, I've also heard that some cancers can also feed off ketone, and I do think there are some instances that, but as I've seen, it's not that common, and it's not gonna be well. Let's say like a keto diet by default would be still much more beneficial in most cases. And if there are some instances of some cancers using those ketones, then it would require some additional kind of other interventions, like, I don't know, hyperbaric oxygen chamber, or doing some sort of extended fasting, those sort of things. And those things can be used in conjunction with the keto diet.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I've heard that too, that certain types of cancers, and I wish I could remember which ones offhand. I want to say it's like brain cancer, or maybe some of the metabolic, like hormone-related cancers, can actually use or feed off of fat. Because I've heard that like a cancer cell has 7 to 10 times the receptor sites for sugar than the average cell. Like it's got, this insatiable appetite for sugar to keep growing. But in your research, can you recall which cancers those are by chance?
No, I can't recall it from the top of my head, but yeah, I would imagine that the cancers, they require like this anaerobic environment in the body as well, and excess lactate, excess glucose, those things will feed those diseases. But I also think that if that cancer starts to use those ketones for fuel, then it's also happening because the body kind of adapts to the presence of ketones quite well, and so the cancer will adapt alongside with that. So I would say that initially, if a person would transition over to a keto diet, then the cancer would still be, it would suffer, or it would decrease just because of the metabolic switch happening, and the body is quite inefficient with the ketones yet. So yeah, I would say that maybe chronic ketosis may not be also useful in that situation. So you still want to incorporate some metabolic flexibility, or at least like practicing some form of fasting even, that puts the body in this completely different, and it forces like a new action on them.
Mm-hmm. In your research, are you seeing a benefit to, or are you seeing anything that would show us that, because the ketogenic diet is is relatively new. I mean, the idea is not new. The idea has been around since the beginning of time, but the application of it with people sticking to it and checking their levels is pretty new. And I'm wondering if you are finding anything like, is the ketogenic diet something that people should do for specific reasons for a certain amount of time? Or I guess it's hard to make a blanket statement, right? Or should someone always be on a ketogenic diet? That seems like a bit of a broad stroke, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's not necessary, and it's not definitely like optimal to be in ketosis all the time. I would say that for optimal health, you would still want to cycle back and forth in some aspect just to maintain your metabolic flexibility. And yeah, there are certain cells in the body and certain organs that do require glucose a little bit. So, maintaining that metabolic flexibility is probably better also for maintaining insulin sensitivity and not becoming glucose intolerant, so to say. So it is true that to a certain extent, your body will become, if you're in chronically in ketosis and on a chronically low carb keto diet, then there is going to be some down regulation of glucose metabolism. And of course, if you were to reintroduce those carbs, you would resume back to being able to metabolize those carbs quite fast. But there's going to be again like an initial point or initial period where you are somewhat glucose intolerant to a certain extent. So it's in my personal experience and my personal opinion, it's just optimal to kind of maintain that flexibility and cycle back and forth a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I want to make sure we get to fasting too. We've got a few minutes left, but there's a couple questions in the chat room. And if you guys are listening on live in the chat room, make sure if you can to type in your questions in all caps. That way I can see them more easily. But let's see here. There's an interesting sort of statement from Darren, and he mentions that multiple sclerosis likes keto. There's less fatigue with it. Have you seen any research with MS and keto?
Yeah, I do think it's really beneficial for that, and it's basically going to help the body to not suffer from that much inflammation and so on. So it's like a therapeutic way of going about it, and I would say that the mitochondrial density aspect is also really critical for treating any type of disease, because most diseases are related to mitochondrial action and such. So on a keto diet, you simply improve your mitochondrial health and you kind of eliminate those kind of dysfunctional components of the cells and dysfunctional organelles that are causing like the additional inflammation and causing free radical accumulation and so on. So using a keto diet is beneficial for keeping the mitochondria healthy, and as well as like keep maintaining this some sort of a semi-fasted state on a consistent basis where the body is still able to heal itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff. We got another sort of response in the chat room. It's interesting. Joe, I love this. Joe Mama says multiple sclerosis is the #1 misdiagnosis for Lyme disease and co-infections. MS is. So if you know someone that's not making progress on an MS treatment, definitely get them tested for Lyme. I didn't know that. So there's a connection, or I guess MS is a misdiagnosis for something like Lyme.
Well, yeah, it could be like those things, they tend to be really interrelated as well. And even then, I've seen like a lot of benefit on treating Lyme with keto diet as well. So
that's interesting, because essentially what you're trying to do is provide, whether or not the keto diet is going to be a treatment for Lyme is a different story, but what you're trying to do is give your body all of the tools it can to make the energy that's necessary to figure out what to do with a co-infection or a virus or some sort of bacteria that Lyme is, so that your body can have the energy to deal with that, right?
Yeah, well, your body, it would want to heal itself, and it does have the tools to do it. The problem is that with modern nutrition, we kind of get in our own way and we inhibit the repair processes. So your body is always prioritizing or choosing between growth and replication versus repair and breaking down. So you can't have them cope at the time, because from an evolution perspective, it's like a limited amount of resources in body, and the body will only conduct the self-repair if it doesn't have to grow, so to say. So most people who are eating, excess calories, they're eating very frequently, then they're maintaining the growth side, or they're maintaining this anabolic mode all the time, and that's simply going to suppress the repair mechanisms, and one of which is autophagy. So autophagy cannot occur if there's like excess amounts of nutrients in your body. And once your body is depleted from certain nutrients, primarily which are glucose and amino acids, then in that case it can start to heal itself and start to repair. And that's where most of the kind of magic happens, where you eliminate all the dysfunctional components, and you basically self-heal yourself.
This is good stuff. My name is Justin Stellman. This is extremehealthradio.com/663 if you guys want to grab the show notes. And if you're listening in the chat room, if you have any questions about any of this, make sure to type your questions in all caps so that I can see them. A lot of cool people talking here. But Siim, I wanted to ask you with regards to fasting. I've heard a lot of different things about fasting, intermittent fasting. Some people say fasting raises cortisol levels and is a tremendous stress on the body. And, there's that whole camp as well. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are on fasting and how that ties into what you just mentioned, autophagy.
Well, yeah, I'm actually like a huge fan of intermittent fasting. And yeah, one of the reasons is because of autophagy. And autophagy is it translates into self-eating, and it's this process where your healthy cells recycle old and worn-out cells. So it usually gets activated under nutritional stress, for instance, when you are fasting or when you're depleted from certain nutrients. And exercise also stimulates autophagy to a certain extent. So it's linked to a lot of the anti-aging and longevity benefits of caloric restriction. So that's why I think it's one of those kind of hidden secrets of holistic medicine and self-care, that your body will have the tools, and it does know how to heal itself. It's just that, like I said earlier, that most of the nutrition that we do consume in contemporary advice, it's kind of inhibit that process, and people rarely fast. So one of the best ways of going about it is to maintain somewhat of a fasting focused lifestyle, where you at least practice some form of time restricted eating every day, so that you would maintain some levels of autophagy during the fast, and at least keep it active to a certain extent. And also like for disease preventing these cancers and these different tumors from ever forming, then for that, practicing some form of extended fasts for up to 3 to 5 days and beyond, those going to be also another things that I myself practice quite frequently. And I do aim for like at least every like a quarter or so, I will have at least like a 3 to 5 day fast, and so on.
I mean, it makes sense. Some people now are saying that it's a like I said before, a stress on your thyroid gland and increases cortisol levels and stuff like that. But in my mind, it makes sense that human beings would have evolved to fast. But a lot of people make this ancestral argument that whatever our ancestors did in the past is something that we should do today. And just because our ancestors did something doesn't necessarily mean that it's the correct thing to do. But in this case with fasting, it seems like this is something that we adapted to over time, and we should be able to go a certain amount of time without eating. And if it is a damage, or if it is a stress by raising cortisol levels, if it is a stress on our thyroid, I would submit that there's a reason for that. And you shouldn't not fast because that's the effect on the body. You should figure out what's going on with your thyroid and your cortisol levels, right? I mean, that's the real issue if someone is concerned about that.
Yeah, it is true that fasting does raise cortisol levels, and it is a stressor on a body, but the benefits of the fast don't come from, that your body is feeling comfortable or that you're feeling pleasant. The benefits of the fast come from the stress itself, and it's going to cause this hormetic stress on the body, which will yield like a positive adaptation in the future. It's the same with like exercise. If exercise didn't cause some stress on your body, then it wouldn't be good for you. And the same it is with fasting as well, that the adaptations that occur during fasting, they have like a positive benefit, which will in turn make the body healthier in the future, and it's gonna make the body stronger. if there is like the situation that some people have some form of low thyroid symptoms, or they have like a very sluggish metabolism, then in that case they even then they could potentially benefit from these longer fasts, because there are actually have been shown that extended fasting for like 48 hours, it does raise the metabolic rate a little bit, like 3 to 14% even. So
Oh, wow.
it's simply a matter of how well are you gonna nourish yourself after you break the fast, because one side of it is easy, the stressor of fasting during the fast, but another side is to also be adequately nourished after you break the fast. So a lot of people may be somewhat scared of eating after breaking the fast, and that may simply lead the body into a much more, they're going to sustain kind of the catabolic mode, and they're not going to be able to repair themselves completely or recover fast enough. So yeah, I like to say that, yeah, it's a good idea to fast, but you also have to feast and maintain muscle mass and maintain your physical activity. So it's never this or that. It's almost like, yeah, you have to kind of adopt a much more
Right.
holistic way of looking at it.
Yeah, it's all about context, right? And what you're trying to accomplish and what current stresses are on your body, because that assumes that if you say, oh, well, fasting is a stress on the body, like you mentioned, that's assuming that stress is bad. I think we have to, like, in our natural sort of world, I think we need to really like hone down on terms we use and define terms before we move on, because you could say, oh, well, eating meat is bad, right? But it depends what kind of meat, what you're combining it with. Is it grass-fed? Is it wild meat? Is it raw meat? Is it organ meat? Is it muscle meat? Is it cooked? How do you cook it? When do you eat it? What kind of time of day do you eat it? Are you eating it in a stress state? So saying meat is bad is like saying fasting is bad because it puts stress on your body. And like you just mentioned, stress, that's assuming all stress is bad, but like working out is a stress, and that's really good for your body. And I'm curious with your fasting, like I do intermittent fasting, and I know there's all different types and windows for that. Like you can do 6 days on, 1 day off. You can do 2 days on, 1 day off. You can do it by hour. I typically stop eating around 6 p.m. or so, and then I don't eat again until 10 a.m. the next morning or 12. What types of intermittent fasting have you tried, and what's worked well for you?
Yeah, like you said, there are different types of doing it, and usually I myself do like a very tighter eating window, and I eat primarily maybe within 2 to 4 hours every day. So it's like one meal a day, but not entirely. It's like an extended one meal a day, and yeah, the rest of the time I'm spending in a fasted state. That's one of the things that I do on a regular basis. Next to that, I also do like these longer fasts, which I usually do maybe like once every 2 months or something, and I usually fast maybe like three days or something. Uh, then there's also things like dry fasting, which is like another way of putting more stress on your body,
Yeah.
but it's said to have where it does stimulate these pathways that promote autophagy much faster and much more stronger, such as like suppressing mTOR and raising AMPK. So it's something to pay attention to, in a sense that every stressor like fasting or exercise, there's going to be a point of diminishing returns, and where that point lies depends on how adaptable you are, how adapted you are to the particular stressor, and what you're going to do afterwards. So yeah, it's a constant process of looking at it, how in what situation is my body at the moment, and what kind of intervention would I benefit from now on.
Now, have you done before and after blood tests? I know if you're in this, you probably have, and tested your ketone levels and stuff. Have you done these sort of experiments and then tested your blood?
Yeah, I have. On a regular basis at home, I measure things like blood glucose and blood ketones, and I would say that, well, in terms of like cancer prevention and treatment, then Thomas Seyfried has seen that in order to reach the therapeutic zone of ketosis, where your body is healing itself, then for that your glucose ketone index would have to be lower, quite low, like below 1. So the glucose ketone index is the relationship between your blood glucose and blood ketones. So usually if your blood glucose is lower and your blood ketones are higher, then that indicates a very low glucose ketone index. So on a regular diet, your glucose ketone index may be somewhere above 5 or 5 between 10. And on a really regular keto diet that isn't that strict, then you may stay around 2 to 3. And during these longer fasts, you may go below 1. And that's where it's like a very therapeutic zone of ketosis. And so usually what I see is that from my own personal experience is that I tend to reach the therapeutic zone of ketosis within like 48-hour fasting, and it's gonna kind of drop from beyond there and up to like 3 days and so on. That's something that people can use at home to kind of guesstimate their general metabolic health. That if their glucose ketone index is very low, then they're in somewhat of a therapeutic zone of ketosis. And that can be like an indirect way of measuring autophagy as well at home. We don't have like any ways of measuring autophagy in humans, but using like a glucose ketone index, that can tell you at least that, okay, my insulin is low and my body is also depleted from the glucose. So it's like an indicative of that the requirements for autophagy are also met. So that's one of the things that I can pay attention to on a consistent basis. Other things that I've also heard are things like IGF, for instance. And there's a lot of kind of talk in the longevity scene about IGF-1, and it's going to accelerate aging and give cancer. What I've seen from my personal experience is that even though I'm not eating like a diet that's restrictive in protein, my IGF-1 levels are still relatively low, just because I'm fasting on a regular basis and I'm not eating very frequently. So I would say that the aspect of frequency is much more relevant and much more important when it comes to the potential risk of IGF-1 or the potential risk of mTOR stimulation. So it's much more kind of a good way of looking at it. And you don't necessarily have like too low levels of IGF-1 and mTOR either, because both of them are beneficial for muscle growth. And if you want to have like a solid pension fund for your aging and longevity, then adequate amounts of muscle mass is really critical for that. And they actually, recently they have actually started to pay a lot of attention to this, that one of the kind of ways of predicting aging is to look at the relative amount of lean body. So yeah, fasting necessarily isn't going to make you build muscle, but if you couple it up with adequate intake of protein and other things like resistance exercise, then it's like a combination of the both of best of worlds. You're going to still get the autophagy from fasting, get the muscle growth from the training and consuming nutrient-dense foods as well. So I think it's a perfect blend of getting like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned it that way, and blending both of those ideas together. We have a couple questions. One is about the fruitarian diet, and one is about workout times and things. But before I ask those from the chat room, I'm curious, in your life, you mentioned that you eat like in kind of like a 2 to 4 hour window, kind of once a day or whatever. And I'm wondering, you mentioned before also about consuming calories and feasting. Now, if you were not doing intermittent fasting and you ate, let's say your eating window was like 8 to 10 hours or something, like the average person, or more than that, maybe 12 hours for the average person. Are you consuming the same amount of calories in that 2 to 4 hour window? Or are you consuming less calories just because you have less time to process and you are getting fuller quicker? So the amount of calories you're eating in that little brief window, is that more or less than normal for you?
I would say that I do aim to eat like the same amount of calories that I would eat on like a wider eating window. It's simply like in a tighter compact format. But I think that because of the smaller window that I am eating, like 2 to 4 hours, then I still am practicing some form of mild caloric restriction, just because, yeah, it's somewhat difficult to eat that much food. in such a short time.
Yeah.
And it's simply like maybe like a spontaneous form of caloric restriction that I'm not even like feeling. I'm not even like subjectively, I'm not feeling that I'm restricting my calories. It just
Right.
happens. And I think it's like a really beneficial thing that, that there's a reason why mild caloric restriction has been shown to be linked to longevity. And yeah, I simply don't want to put, I still want to nourish myself, and I want to restrict my calories too much. So that's why I still try to, consume adequate amounts of nutrient-dense foods.
Mm-hmm. And you're finding it's working really well for you right now?
Yeah, I've been doing it for maybe like 2 years or such, and yeah, it's been working really well. And my workouts and my performance hasn't suffered, and I've still been able to like build lean muscle with it. So yeah, it's
That's
really
awesome.
comfortable.
That's great. Let's see, we got a couple questions here. Like I mentioned before, we'll do a couple of these. We'll bounce around for a minute or two. We're already over an hour, so we'll bounce around for a couple more minutes from the chat room. In space, I love this. Spaceman Legitsu says, let's see, he says, what about the fruitarian diet? What do you think about that?
Well, say that the fruitarian diet probably isn't enough to give you like all of the essential nutrients that you would need. In a short term, it can work just as a way of cleansing yourself or something. But I would say that if your goal is to detox yourself or to body, then a regular long fast would be much more effective for that, and it's gonna be more, let's say, it's not gonna be causing as many nutrient deficiencies in the long term. So I don't have like a lot of experience with the whole raw fruitarian diet in the long term, but I would say that the kind of rationale for why would you want to eat a fruitarian diet, it's not something that you wouldn't get from a regular fasting focused lifestyle that incorporates back to back different longer fasts while still eating much more wide variety of foods. So yeah, in my personal opinion, it's not going to have like some unique benefit that you wouldn't get, and it has like potential risk of nutrient deficiencies in the long term.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that all of this comes down to context and what people are doing and what they're up against in terms of potential diseases or whatever. I think it's obviously best to have a well-rounded diet myself, just as your sort of foundation, your default. And then I am really big fan of what you're talking about, Siim, of like metabolic flexibility and trying things like if someone's on a ketogenic diet, for example, I think it would be, I mean, it's hard to say because everyone's different. Everyone has different needs and at different times in their life. But it seems to me like messing around with like a little 3-day fruitarian fast or 3-day vegan fast or doing a water fast for 3 days and then going back to the healthiest diet that makes sense for you. It seems like that would make a lot of sense. I don't know.
Yeah, it can be something that to kind of cause some disruption in your metabolism, and it may have like a very effective effect, so to say, that most of the benefits of these different diets come from not the diet itself, but because of like the period of adaptation where your body has to kind of adjust to the new setting and change some of the metabolic processes, so to say. And it is a good idea to change everything once in a while because it kind of mimics the seasonality of what our kind of hunter-gatherer ancestors also followed. So yeah, I would say that it's a good idea to mix things up every once in a while, but yeah, you just have to make sure that you find that the results are worth it, so to say, that if you don't feel better by changing things up, then you may not want to do it.
Good stuff. Lime to Limitless is here in the chat room. I follow him on Instagram. Cool guy. Cool Instagram account. Okay, final question that we're going to take. You're an animal. Great to see you here as well. This is awesome. Angie wants to know, when would it be best to work out compared to feeding time? So she says here she plans to start off with about a 14 to 16 fast. I'm assuming it's a 14 to 16 hour fast with a feeding window of around 8 hours. So Angie wants to know, when would be the best time to work out compared to a feeding time? Now consider this is a woman. So what are your thoughts about this?
Um, well, in most cases, I would say that if she's practicing like 14 to 16 hours of fasting, then in that case, she maybe benefit from breaking the fast at the 16 hours, having like a smaller meal, and then having a workout after a few hours, and then having the post-workout meal as well. So in that kind of a shorter fast, it's not that detrimental to consume the food and then work out, because if you have some food in your system, then you're probably going to have like a better workout, and it's also going to be more prone to keeping the muscle building signal, or the adaptation to the exercise alive. With that being said, she can also try to have the workout before breaking the fast, which will also have like a quite a beneficial effect. But in that case, she would maybe consume a larger meal after breaking the fast, so to say. So what I always like to keep in mind is that the food you eat after your workout should comprise most of your calories, because it's going to promote recovery, and it's going to promote the muscle growth and the other adaptations that occur during the exercise, and it's going to shift your body into a much more parasympathetic state.
Mm-hmm.
So in most cases, it's always better to have, if you work out, then it's better to have most of your calories in the post-workout scenario. And whether or not you're gonna eat something before the workout, yeah, that depends again on your choice. Do you feel better during the workout? Do you see better results from it? And also like how much time do you have, and if you feel like it's worth it. But in terms of like the circadian aspect of training, then depends on what type of training it is. From a like a circadian perspective, then usually most of the strength and muscle coordination and balance and those things tend to be higher in the afternoon, where your nervous system is more prone to be using like high intensity type of training, like lifting weights or sprints and so on. And in the morning hours, that's where your body is more used to like a regular cardio type of workout. So me personally, I work out primarily in the afternoon around like 3 to 4 and 5 p.m. And that's where I usually feel the strongest, and that's where the nervous system is tends to also be like more aligned for that type of a workout that's more adjusted to heavier intensities.
That makes sense. That makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. And is it true? I've heard a lot and read where if you work out in a fasted state, which I do from time to time, then your testosterone levels go up. Is that? You think there's some truth to that?
Yeah, well, fasting itself does raise some of the precursors of testosterone, like luteinizing hormone. So it can promote like additional. It can simply, I wouldn't know like if the workout itself or combined with the fasting would have like an additional benefit. But I would say that fasting by itself will already raise testosterone indirectly through luteinizing hormone. The problem may be that if you're working out fasted, then the cortisol can kind of balance out the rise in testosterone, if that makes sense. So cortisol is like the cortisol tends to lower testosterone. So I'm not sure like how it's gonna affect it in a fasted workout, but the fasting itself will testosterone functioning.
Yeah, I've heard that over the years. Okay, one final question. Sorry, go ahead.
I think it depends. Yeah, it depends on like what kind of a workout are you doing and how long and how intense. If you're going for like a 3 hour bike ride in the fastest state that's low intensity, then that's probably not going to have like a significant cortisol release either, because it's for like a really low intensity like recreational activity. But if you're doing like HIIT cardio for 30 minutes or something, kettlebell swings, these CrossFit type of workouts in a faster state, then that may potentially like simply overstimulate the cortisol. So it's a matter of what kind of a workout are you doing as well. Like regular resistance training with weights and barbells, that's probably not it doesn't cause that much stress to the body. So that this type of workout in a faster state should be probably fine for testosterone as well.
Yeah, interesting. One final question in the chat room, and then we'll go. Spaceman Legitsu again says, when one trains like a crazy beast, when one trains like a crazy beast, why does unhealthy foods and drinks have less of an impact?
Well, I think that most of the reasons is because muscle is one of the biggest organs that you have, and it's like a really amazing glucose metabolizer. And like we mentioned in the earlier part of the show, that your body stores glycogen as backup fuel, and the muscle has like a ton of glycogen stores. So if you are physically more active, then you're gonna probably have like lower levels of muscle glycogen, just especially like after workouts, and that can help the body to dispose the glycogen much more efficiently, and it's not going to cause like an overspill effect. So you can get away with more calories because you have larger muscle glycogen stores, and your glycogen stores will be somewhat depleted more frequently as well. And there's also the thing that muscle promotes insulin sensitivity, and exercise also promotes insulin sensitivity. So your body is simply, okay, we are getting those a bunch of carbs and a bunch of food, but we're going to use it for recovery, and we're not going to use it for getting fat, basically.
Right, right. That makes sense. Siim, thank you so much for being on the show today and talking about this. This is cool because we always like to present options for people to experiment with, and things for people to play with, and different healing modalities. So this is really cool. Tell people a little bit about what you have going on your site and what they can find if they go there.
Well, yeah, thanks for having me, and it was a really awesome chat, and I've never done like a live Q&A on a
Cool.
podcast as well, so it's an awesome experience. But yeah, if people want to learn more about my newest book, Metabolic Autophagy, then they can check it on Amazon as well. And it
Oh,
talks
cool.
about how do you optimize like intermittent fasting and resistance training, and also like the metabolic flexibility side of dieting. How do you optimize it for longevity as well as performance? And my site is my site is like my personal blog, where I write articles about different types of ways of optimizing the keto diet, and also the intermittent fasting, extended fasting, and a lot of like tutorials and free guides, so people can definitely check it out.
Yeah, that's cool. I was just bringing up your website right now, metabolic autophagy. Okay, cool. And so it looks like there's a program is there as well. Does it come with like some other accoutrements?
The program is basically like an additional, like a next level thing for the book. It's going to include all the concepts of the book, but it also has like a four week workout plan plus a meal plan with low calorie and high calorie intake. So it's going to tell you like exactly what foods to eat at what time. Based upon the kind of what metabolic status your body is in. Like, okay, did you have a workout? What you're gonna eat then? Did you come from a longer fast? What you're gonna eat then, and so on. So yeah, it's an in-depth guide that kind of teaches you how to start to pull these different levers in regards to how do you optimize your longevity and performance.
Cool. And I'm looking on your site here under books and products, and I'm looking down. It looks like you have a Keto Fit program. And then you have a simple keto series, and you have like a vegan keto, target keto. What are those?
Those books are talking about the ketogenic diet and the different versions of it. So the simple keto book talks about the regular way of eating keto. Then there's the keto cycle book that talks about the cyclical keto diet. And yeah, the target keto is about the targeted keto diet. And there's like different methods of going it. And the book Keto Bodybuilding, like a more collection of those different modalities for primarily using it for muscle growth and strength.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking at your site here, becoming a self-empowered being. That's cool. This is all just really part of like what you're about, right? I mean, this is what it's all about, taking care of your own biology and upgrading it and to becoming the best version of yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's about taking care of your body, or upgrading yourself and optimizing yourself, so that you could become more valuable to the world, and you can start to contribute back to those around you as well. So yeah, it's all starts with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like, there's ancient sayings that if you want to change the world, then you know start changing yourself. And that's exactly like with what is biohacking and these different health techniques are about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I totally agree. Thanks for being on, like I said, and yeah, I really appreciate it. So people can find you at Siim, Siim, 2 I's, LAND.com. And what do you have going on? Anything upcoming? Any travels? Anything like that?
Well, at the moment, I'm based in Estonia for the upcoming few weeks, and then there's gonna be like these different conferences in the Baltic region, the Biohacker conference in Riga, which is a Latvian concert. I'm gonna be speaking there in the end of April, and there's also gonna be in if I'm not mistaken, it's gonna be in August, the Health Optimization Summit in London. And there's also be the Biohacker Summit in Helsinki this October. So those are the events that I'm definitely going to plan on going this year.
That's awesome. This is great. Europeans are getting on board with this whole upgrade, and it's good to see.
Well, I think, yeah, definitely. But at the same time, most of the kind of original biohacks and these techniques come from these regions, like the sauna. This been used for thousands of years in Finland and Estonia and Siberia and so on. And the chaga mushroom is also growing like literally in my own backyard. We have chaga growing here, and so yeah, it's like modern and technology and modern biohacking. It kind of meets this traditional way of folk medicine. So it's a cool combination of these different worlds.
Yeah, man, that's cool. Cool stuff. All right, Siim, well, I'll be in contact with you. I'll send you the link as soon as this is done processing and uploading, and you can share it with your people or do whatever you like with it. And thanks for being on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, and had a good chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Siim. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye. There you go, guys. Mr. Siim Land. There you go. Curious about what your thoughts are. I have some thoughts about intermittent fasting and the ketogenic diet, and I love the end of the show where you and I get to break this stuff down. But I wanted to say before we do that, I wanted to share with you, there's a really big sale going on right now. It's the biggest sale of the year on colostrum. And let me play this little clip from Daniel Vitalis, and I got a couple key points I want to share after this break about what we just talked about, because I think it's really important that we kind of go a little bit deeper. So if you guys are interested in the colostrum, we just bought their, 2 kilos, so it's 4.4 pounds. And I use it in my drinks. I use it on ice cream. I use it everywhere. So this stuff is like liquid gold. Check it out.
Forget superfoods. Colostrum is mammal's first food. Containing the essential building blocks for growth, gut integrity, and immune health. Often referred to as liquid gold, colostrum is known to balance immune function, support digestive health, and increase endurance and lean muscle mass. Colostrum's naturally balanced and living nutrition, which supplies growth and immune factors, is a delicious dose of restoration that's easy to use in powder or capsule form. Clean, conscientious, tested antibiotic-free, and produced in a U.S. GMP certified facility, it's your first food for second chances.
Hey guys, I'm curious, you guys that are listening or watching on the live stream, did you hear Daniel Vitalis' voice in that? Because I'm getting some really strange audio coming into my earbuds, and I didn't hear any of his voice, so I think we need to upgrade some of our equipment, because I had a difficult time hearing Siim during that show. Very difficult time. He was coming in very low. So I'm curious, if you're watching in the chat room, let me know if you heard Daniel Vitalis' voice in that. And if you did, then that means there's something going on with some of my equipment here. But regardless, go and get some of that colostrum. I'm telling you guys, what colostrum is good for, it's kind of two main things, but it does so many other processes in the body. But it helps to educate your immune system, because colostrum is nature's or mammal's first food. It's the first food that we would have gotten from our mom. And it contains all of these immune globulins in there, and to help educate and train your immune system. And so it's one of the best things you can do to improve immunity, to maintain your immune system levels. It's just an incredible food for that. And then on the flip side, something else that it does that a lot of people talk about is it improves your gut permeability. So it actually makes it so that your gut can heal and seal, so that there's no leaky gut and things passing through the villi and through the what are supposed to be tight junctions in your gut. It prevents that. So there should be no barrier from your gut into your bloodstream. If there is, then you have autoimmune diseases and things like that. So one of the key things that I recommend to everyone who has a leaky gut situation or things like that, or gut issues at all, is colostrum. It's the best for that. But aside from both those things, what's really cool is it just tastes and smells great. It's creamy. You can add it to anything you want. It's just, you can add it to fruit smoothies, you can add it to chocolate, coffee drinks, you can add it to pancakes like he showed there in the thing. So really, really a unique substance. And something else that I wanted to talk to you guys about too, really quickly before we break some of what Siim said down in the show, is these Magnetico mattress pads. And one of the things that I recommend for people is to optimize the areas of your life, whether it's at home or at work, where you spend the most time. And so I would focus on things that you can do to alter your environment where you spend the most time. So that is probably for most people either the kitchen, the bedroom, or your work environment. So the bedroom is like an obvious one, right? Because it's like 8 hours of your day, a third of your life, you're in your bedroom on your bed. And so using magnetism to affect the electrons that spin in your mitochondrial membranes is just one of the best and healthiest things you could ever do. And we did a whole show about the mitochondria and deuterium and this magnetic energy that your what does he call those motor neurons, or no, not motor neurons. I forget the name that he said during that show, but basically the mitochondria and what they do, they emit a magnetic charge. And so it's really, really key, I think, to sleep on a magnetic mattress pad, not just because of 5G and not just because of dirty electricity in your walls, although it's really great to sleep and bathe yourself in that magnetic field, but for so many other reasons here. And check out what Dr. William Pollack had to say about that.
The body, and for the body.
Okay.
All the activity of the body, all those biochemical processes rely on the natural electromagnetic fields and electrical fields within the body itself.
Okay.
Magnetic fields drive chemical reactions.
Okay.
Chemical reactions interact with magnetic fields, so they go back and forth.
Okay.
Again, it's very dynamic. But because the magnetic field doesn't stay in the body doesn't have to process a magnetic field the way it processes a chemical or a food.
Okay.
Okay? And it's going all the way through. And as it goes through, it does a bunch of different things. And in the book, I actually have about 25 different mechanisms that I describe about how magnetic fields actually work in the body.
Interesting. Okay.
But the primary mechanism we believe that's happening is that you're generating charge. You're generating energy, the production of energy in the tissues. And remember I said electric currents and magnetic fields in the body itself drive and move all sorts of processes continually.
Okay.
And when you have disease, when you have illness, when things are not functioning as well as you want, and including aging, the slowing down of activity in the body, that is due to a decreasing energy production processes in the body. That's what aging is. It's the reduction of energy in the body.
Yes, my friends, and one of the best things you could do, I think, in my opinion, we have the 10 Gauss Magnetico sleep pad, and it's so cool. I'm telling you guys, like, it's so great getting into bed knowing that you're bathing yourself in this magnetic field, and they go from 5 Gauss to 10 Gauss to 20 Gauss, and we, like I said, have the 10 Gauss. We're going to be upgrading soon to the 20 Gauss specifically because of 5G coming. And a greater exposure to electromagnetic fields. And what we need to figure out and realize is like our environment is being altered, environment's being altered from outside sources, unconscious sources. And every time our environment is altered, we need to do more. And so sometimes we think, oh, there's a 5G tower coming up, or oh, there's GMOs coming up. But the more of the stuff that's happening in our environment, the more we need to recognize that and say, okay, I need to mitigate that in some way. I need to optimize my health in some other way. And realizing that, like, for example, they just installed a 5G tower in our neighborhood, not in our neighborhood, but next to our neighborhood at a church. This was something I found out, that these wireless tech companies will pay schools and churches and things, and they'll actually rent the top of their buildings or the side. In this particular case, if you follow us on Instagram, you've seen the pictures we posted. They actually have this huge, massive 5G tower right underneath one of those portable classrooms that they have for kids. And they're paying like $40,000 a month just to put their thing there. And it's sad. And so now we are in the process of looking to move, but thank God we have these technologies like the Blue Shield that's in our store that emits a scalar frequency using a pretty dynamic microprocessor that emits a scalar field. We use that. We use the Rest Shield. It's also available in our store. The Magnetico mattress pad. We're going to be using some of the technology from Brian Hoyer, the Shielded Healing guy. We have his box on our store that will diminish and drastically reduce the dirty electricity in your walls throughout your entire home, because it's getting it at the breaker box, and you can take this with you. So these things are just, unfortunately, in our toxic world, we can't just live like everyone else is living, because if we do that, then we just get the same results that everyone else is getting, which is a 50% cancer rate across the board. So in order for us to live and thrive, not just live, but thrive in this modern world, we have to do things every day that feed our mitochondria, that increase our energy so that our body has the energy to heal. We can't just keep doing the same things that everybody else is doing. It's really simple. It's really easy for us to just fall into those same patterns, right? Like your friends are going out to work if you're working in an office building, and they're all going to go eat fast food somewhere at some fast food restaurant, and it's really easy to go with them, right? It takes a little bit of discipline to bring your own food and then to eat it outside with your bare feet grounded in the sun with no sunglasses on. Not a lot of people are going to want to do that. They go from the office building, which is under fake light, bathing in magnetic fields and EMF riddled environment, and then they go and they get in their car and they drive to another place and they eat inside in another place that's just like that. So it's becoming more and more where we really need to ground ourselves and reconnect with nature. And some of these products we have in our store, they don't heal you, but they allow your body to get to a more sympathetic place where it can actually regenerate during the time that it's supposed to regenerate, like during your sleep. So the Magnetico mattress pads is something that I recommend for everybody. I think they're crucial. I think it's really critical to bring some of these technologies like the Juve red light therapy, like these glasses, like the colostrum. Super, super important, I think, to bring these things into your life. So if you guys are interested, let me show you the Magnetico sleep pad in our store. If you guys are interested in checking it out, we actually have a picture with Kate there, and she was using it while she was pregnant, the 10 Gauss, and our kids sleep amazing. Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of frequency, energy, and vibration. Pretty cool. And what Dr. Pollack was talking about there, that your cells respond to the magnetic field. And it's really, really, here's a picture of Kate on her while she's pregnant. This is when we first installed it. So it's really cool. That's a picture on Instagram of Kate sitting there pregnant with our Magnetico freshly installed. So really, really big fan of this guy. Like I said, we've been using it for almost a year. And Dr. Dean Bondley, we've done a whole entire show with him about this. If you guys are interested in saving up for it, or if you ever want to purchase one, use the code EHR for Extreme Health Radio 10 for 10% off. And that way we'll get a little commission to help support our show, and you'll get even better, an awesome piece of equipment that's going to help improve your health tremendously. And something else I wanted to share with you guys too, really quickly, was this rapid release. I don't talk about this very much. This thing, I use it every single day. This thing is absolutely one of my go-to tools for so many different things. And it's really sort of marketed towards chiropractors. And so what they do is it uses this low-level rapid release technology. It's a vibrational frequency, and it does it, I think, up to 10,000 revolutions a second. And what is cool is that it helps to relax and to break apart, muscular tightness and cramps and things like that. But I use it over my entire body. I use it over my liver. I use it over my thyroid. I use it sometimes if I have a clogged ear, or if my throat is having an issue, or sometimes what I'll do too See, they don't tell you this. This is mostly for like, sports injuries and things like that, chiropractic and back health. And there's a whole YouTube video they did with Terry Bradshaw, the former football player, all about this rapid release. But what I use it for is like beyond that. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll do it over my throat, and I'll do it in my armpits and my groin, because that's where all your lymph nodes are. And I'll stimulate my lymph nodes, and then I'll jump up and down on my rebounder and flush all of that stuff out. And then I'll sit in my sauna and sweat all those fat soluble toxins and poisons out of my body through my skin. And so it's a really tremendous technology. So if I'm working out, like I'll do it after all my workouts to reduce, I don't know if it reduces lactic acid, but I'll do it if I'm doing deadlift or bench press. After I'm done with my set, I'll do a little 20-second once over on my entire chest or my lower back if I'm doing deadlift. And it's incredible. I'm telling you guys, this thing changed my life. It's a great tool to have at your home if you have kids, in case they ever get injured. It's just a great tool to take with you to the gym, to have it at home for your lower back issues, for all over your body, to stimulate circulation, blood flow, oxygen, all that cool stuff. And I'm just a big fan of this Rapid Release Technology Pro 2. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, there's links to that down below. And if you're listening on a podcast version, then you can go to extremehealthradio.com/663, and you can check out the links to the Rapid Release, the colostrum, the Magnetico, the Juve red light therapy device, and the glasses that I'm wearing now to block blue light. So I'm curious what you guys think about that podcast with Siim Land. What is interesting to me, I'm not sold myself about the ketogenic diet for long term, because it still seems to me like a relatively new experiment in human biology, and it makes sense for certain reasons. Like I mentioned during the show, like we had a lady who's beating her brain cancer, or the extra cells in her brain, using part of her approach is this ketogenic diet. I think that it has merit. I just am kind of like lurking back and just watching people that are doing it and seeing what kind of long-term results people are going to be getting from this. So I'm curious what your thoughts are about the ketogenic diet. Do you follow it? What do you think about it? I'm looking in the chat room now. Cool. I'm glad you guys could hear the sound. That was really cool. I'm glad, because that means there's some issue going on my end. So I'll fix it so I can hear the guest. I could barely hear him today. Glad you guys could hear him well, but I could barely hear him. So the same goes true with fasting as well. I think that these are tools that I think could be used in a beneficial way for specific purposes for certain times, perhaps to heal, or perhaps to overcome some sort of disease that you might be dealing with. But I don't know that living in a completely fasted state all the time is going to be good for you. Like I mentioned before, a lot of people are saying now that it increases stress in the body, it raises cortisol levels, it screws up your thyroid. If your thyroid is screwed up, then it's going to screw up your cascading hormonal structure of your body, the release of these different hormones in your body that you need to regulate your levels. I would submit that it makes the most sense to me that human beings have fasted since the beginning of time, right? So let's look at this from like a balanced approach. People like Ray Peat would say that fasting is damaging. You should never fast. Your brain runs on glucose and sugar and these types of things, and that may be true. And so what do you do with the people like at True North who go there for fasting for autoimmune diseases or for cancer, and they're healing themselves through something that's free that we could all do, is fasting? Now, there's a lot of nuance, and there's a lot of things you could say as to why something like that would happen. Because if fasting is across the board bad, if it raises your cortisol levels, if it screws up your thyroid, if it screws up your hormone production, if it raises inflammation in the body, if it causes constant stress on the body, first of all, you have to prove that's true with everyone across the board. And if you could prove that's true, that presupposes that all of those things are bad, right? It says that stress is bad. It's always bad. But let's say that is the case with everybody. If fasting does all those negative things on you, but let's say you're dealing with some extra cells growing on in your body, and you have to take a hit somewhere, right? So if fasting does all those things, but it allows your body to heal from those extra cells, then that's a hit I'm willing to take, right? So there's figuring out what's going on with people's lives and what state they're in to consider before we say that fasting is bad for all people everywhere. I'm more on board with the fasting idea myself personally, just because I do it and it seems to work for me, but it makes sense from an evolutionary perspective for me that our ancestors would have been fasting. And like I mentioned before too, you hear a lot of this in the alternative health world, is that our ancestors did this or ancestors did that, so this is what we should be doing, following, like Dr. Hal Huggins would mention, our ancestral diet. And once we get back to that, we can heal all of our issues. And there's people saying that, and just because our ancestors did something doesn't mean, I mean, they lived in caves too, right? Or they didn't drive cars. They didn't do all these things that we do today. So just because they did something doesn't necessarily mean that they did the right thing. In 300,000 years from now or a million years from now, that culture could say that our ancestors, who are us, ate Wheaties and Twinkies and ate junk food, so we should do the same. And that doesn't mean that a 20-year-old who lives a million years from now can't still thrive on eating a diet of junk food, right? He could do that based on ancestral diet because that's what we ate today, and still thrive because he's 20 years old. So there's a lot of things to think about. But it does make sense to me that fasting would have been something that we would have and should be able to do. It makes a lot of sense to me. Now, is fasting right for everyone? Only you know that. If you're drawn to it, perhaps if fasting does all the things that we've talked about that it does, it helps improve autophagy and mitophagy, and it helps to increase energy production in the cell, and it affects the mitochondria and ATP production. If it does all these amazing things, but it also does all the bad stuff, then is that risk worth it for you? But I'm not even convinced that it does all the bad stuff. And I would surmise that if it is screwing up someone's thyroid, perhaps their thyroid isn't strong enough to be able to fast. That's something that we're not really talking about. People will say like, oh, it screws up your thyroid. But one consideration there is that it's true, it does screw up your thyroid. Even if you have a perfectly working thyroid, it could screw it up. And in that case, is it worth the risk of screwing up your thyroid to healing some extra cells that are growing on your body? Or if it does screw up your thyroid and it's not worth that risk, then fasting would be bad for you. So there's a lot of nuances, a lot of little things to think about when it comes to these things. But I would surmise that if you're drawn to something, research it and just do it, and stop sort of listening to what I say about it or what other people say about it. The best thing that we could all do is be our own sort of experimenters, be our own canary in the coal mine, and experiment on ourselves and see how we feel. And I think this is one of the most important things that we could all do, so that we don't vacillate in listening to this guy says this and this guy says this. Fasting is good, fasting is bad, the vegan diet's the best, the animal diet's the best, and everyone should be doing this and everyone should be doing that, when in actuality, the biggest thing we can do is invest in ourselves and grow our roots deep into the sand or deep into the soil, so that we're rooted and grounded. And someone could come along and say that, let's say you're eating a vegan diet. Someone could come along and say that a vegan diet is horrible for you, but you do all your blood work, you're eating a vegan diet, you feel happy, you're doing your work in the world, you feel great, you're getting tested and everything's going great, you're happy, you're horny, you're going to the bathroom great, you're sleeping great, you have high energy levels, then the vegan diet's the best thing for you right then, right? So it doesn't matter what anybody else says except for what you're doing. And so I think it's really important for us to stop living, like Elliot Hull says, in our heads. As a culture, we're living in our heads. We're constantly disconnecting ourselves from our body and from how we're feeling, and constantly looking for intellectual information and people to support our predetermined conclusions based on what they look at. And then it becomes this sort of blanket statement that's true for all people at all times in all parts of the world. And so there is nuance and there is context and there is variability with all of this stuff. So, but what I was going to say before is that if you guys are drawn to some of this stuff, I would highly recommend pursuing it, because perhaps there's a disease process, or perhaps there's some metabolic cleanup that's happening in your body that you need to fix. And that's why you're drawn to this on a deep spiritual subconscious level. You might be drawn to the fasting because your subconscious knows that the fasting is going to help you clean that up. And let's say you do it for 6 months or a year, and then you're like, I'm done. I don't like doing that anymore. But that's what your body needed to help heal. On a subconscious level, you understood that. But on a conscious level, you were just like, oh, fasting sounds like it would be cool. But there's deep unconscious spiritual meanings and reasons why we're drawn to the things we're drawn to. And so I would submit to you to be in touch with that and honor that. And if you feel deeply drawn to doing a vegan diet, an all carnivore diet, or whatever it is you feel drawn to do, look at that and see if there's some benefit there that you could be in touch with that might be helping you in some deeper way. And so anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that show. Thanks, guys, for visiting our sponsors for today's show, which was the colostrum from Daniel Vitalis. That's going to be on sale till March 23rd. 2019, the biggest sale of the year on colostrum. Make sure to go through our link at extremehealthradio.com/663, or if you're watching on YouTube, down below if you're watching before that date. The Juve red light therapy device, big fan of that. We have one in our home, and I use it every day. The blue blocking glasses, the ones I'm wearing now, they're running a discount, a 20% off sale with the code WSD, World Sleep Day 2019, and that ends Saturday, March 16th, midnight Australian time. So make sure to go through our link down below if you guys are interested in that, as well as the rapid release and the Magnetico. Make sure to check those out. You guys are just awesome. Thank you for your support over the years. And just to let you guys know too, we are now we just got accepted to Spotify and iHeartRadio. So if you guys use Spotify or our iHeartRadio, subscribe to us on there, and you can get our shows every single day. And just so you know, if you subscribe to our shows on iTunes or on those platforms or Stitcher or something like that, there's shows coming out every single day. So about 5 days a week, we release some of our archived content. Shows, awesome, amazing shows from like 2-3 years ago that you can get access to, that many of you guys don't know the way we've done. And then a couple days a week, we're doing our new shows there. So make sure to subscribe and make sure to subscribe so you can check out some of the shows and you don't miss any of these things. All right, guys. I love you guys very much. Oh, Adele is here. Awesome. Adele's a member of the Extreme Health Academy. Thank you, Adele, for being here. This is cool. What does he eat in the shouts? I'm not sure exactly what you mean. What does he eat in the 2 houts? You guys are awesome. Thank you for being here. And Spaceman Legitsu says, love your work. So that's cool. Flow with the go, as Hickson Gracie used to say. Flow with the go. You guys are amazing. And follow your heart and listen to your intuition. Listen to your gut. Don't let anybody else tell you what you should be eating. Only you know what to eat. And listen and be in tune with that. And that's the biggest thing that I could tell you to do, is to not listen to me, not listen to anybody else online. It's all just mental masturbation, this stuff. Only you guys know what you feel good eating. So that's really what it comes down to. And I love you guys very much. Thank you very much for supporting us too. It means the world to me that you would go through our Amazon link. Like, we have a link on our Amazon store. Let me show you really quickly if you guys are watching on the YouTube version. On our homepage, we have a link down below at the bottom for our Amazon store. So if you go through our Amazon link, you can help support the show. So if you go all the way to the bottom, there's a link there for Amazon right here. And if you do that before you make a purchase there, it supports the show. It allows us to keep doing this free content. And also too, if you guys are interested in becoming a Patreon, that is a great way to support the show. It keeps the show free. and we really love it. And it's a tremendous way to do that. And you can donate like $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month. It just comes out once a month, and it supports the 12 podcasts that we do every single month to bring to you guys for free. So we appreciate that. So Amazon and Patreon are great ways to support the show. Also, if you're listening on, I guess, anywhere, tag us on Instagram and share it with your friends. That would be great. I would love that. That would really help spread our message to more people, and it would help the show as well. So I appreciate that, the tagging and sharing and reposting stuff like that on Instagram. It's really great. So you guys are just great. Our Instagram handle is Extreme Health Radio, and we do a lot of stuff on there. So I hope you guys are enjoying the stuff that we're posting there on Instagram. Let's see. Coming up, what do we got? What do we have? We have Friday. Gosh, today's Wednesday. Friday, we have Dr. Randy Tent. So that's going to be a good show. We had so many emails come in asking him to be on the show. So that's going to be a fun show. He's been booked for a couple months now. So next Monday, Nathan Walls, and he talks a lot about light water magnetism, personal development, obviously personal growth, spiritual growth, as well as physical, and focusing on diet and nutrition as well. So he's really cool. Katie Singer next Wednesday about how do we shrink the internet's footprint. That's going to be a cool show. Next Friday, we have Dr. Sam Byrne. We'll be talking about holistic eye care. And then so many cool shows. Amy Prohl's coming back on the show to talk about bacteria and viruses and fungus. Oh my gosh. Her show that we did before was just, that blew my mind. It was so interesting to me. So a lot of cool stuff. So make sure to subscribe on YouTube, and thank you all for your support over the years. I really appreciate it. And if you want to take your health to new levels, we're going to be doing or releasing the Bone Health program inside the Extreme Health Academy very soon. We're getting close to being done putting the final touches on the editing for that brand new course that's coming. So a lot of cool stuff happening in the Extreme Health Academy. So come and join us. If you guys want a free 14-day trial to really take your health to new levels and get the support that you need, come join us over there. And it's for serious people that really want to upregulate their health. And get the support, inspiration, and most importantly, the education and that feeling of community and belonging inside the Extreme Health Academy. It's the logical, sort of practical end point for what we're doing here on the radio show, is bringing awareness, but then how do we put all that into practice? And that's what we do on the Extreme Health Academy. So that is a monthly subscription. But there is a 2-week trial I can give you for free. So if you go to extremehealthacademy.com and enter the code EHR14, you can check out a free 14-day trial. So go to extremehealthacademy.com, enter the code EHR14, and get that free trial, and come tag me in the forums, say hello, start consuming all the amazing question and answers and courses and all that cool stuff in there, and let me know what you think about that. So a free 14-day trial to the Extreme Health Academy. You will love it. So love you guys very, very much. We'll see you Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you again for your support. You're amazing, and I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here, and I'll see you Friday at 10:45.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog, or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only, and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse